48 hours. That's how long it had been since I stood outside that house, staring through the window, watching my husband kneel in front of a little girl who called him Dad. 48 hours since my entire life stopped making sense. And yet somehow, I still hadn't said a word. Not to him, not to anyone. The first night after it happened, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, the same scene replayed in my mind like a broken recording. The couch, the dim light in the living room, the little girl wrapped in a blanket, and my husband kneeling in front of her, holding her hands like she was the most important thing in his world. Then her voice, soft, fragile. "Dad, are you staying tonight?" That single word kept echoing in my head. Dad. The second night wasn't any easier. I kept asking myself the same question again and again. How long had this been happening? Weeks? Months? Years? And the most painful thought of all slowly crept into my mind. Had my entire marriage been a lie? The next morning, he woke up beside me like nothing had happened. He stretched, yawned, and walked to the kitchen like every other morning. Then I heard the familiar sound of the coffee machine. The smell slowly filled the house. For years, that smell meant comfort to me. Routine, stability, home. But that morning, it felt different. That morning, it smelled like deception. He poured 2 cups and placed one in front of me on the kitchen counter. "Morning," he said with a calm smile. That same warm smile that made me fall in love with him years ago. For a moment, I stared at him, really stared, studying every tiny detail of his face, trying to see if the man standing in front of me was the same man I thought I knew. "Did you sleep well?" he asked casually. I forced a small nod. "Yeah, I guess." But the truth was, I hadn't slept at all. My mind had been replaying the same moment over and over again. The little girl, the blanket, her voice calling him Dad. He leaned against the counter and took a sip of coffee, like everything in the world was perfectly normal. And that was the moment a strange realization hit me. If he could lie this easily, then how long had he been lying? The thought made my stomach tighten, but there was something else that bothered me even more. Because when I remembered the way he held that girl, something didn't feel like guilt. It felt like pain, real pain. And that only made the mystery worse, because if he wasn't cheating, then what exactly was he hiding? That evening, the house felt unusually quiet. He sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, while the television played softly in the background. The room was filled with the flickering light of the screen, but neither of us were actually watching it. I sat at the other end of the couch, pretending to read something on my tablet, but my attention kept drifting back to him, watching, waiting, trying to catch something in his behavior, a sign, a clue, anything. Then suddenly his phone vibrated. Once, twice, 3 times. My heart instantly started racing. He glanced down at the screen, and in that split second, something in his expression changed. It wasn't obvious. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I did, because I was already looking for it. He quickly stood up, grabbed his jacket, and reached for his keys. "I've got another meeting tonight," he said casually. Those exact words. The same excuse he had used 2 nights ago. And suddenly, I understood something very clearly. If I let him walk out that door again, I might never get the truth. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood up. "Who is she?" I asked quietly. He froze. Completely. The keys in his hand stopped moving. For a moment, he didn't even breathe. Slowly, he turned around, and the expression on his face told me everything I needed to know. Because for the first time since this all began, he looked afraid. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. It felt like the air itself had stopped moving. "Who are you talking about?" he asked carefully. But the hesitation in his voice betrayed him. I shook my head slowly. "Don't pretend you don't know." His jaw tightened slightly. "The little girl," I said. His face changed instantly. Not anger, not denial. Something heavier. Something that looked dangerously close to regret. "You followed me," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. I nodded. "Yes." He stood there for several seconds without speaking. Then slowly, he sat down. Like the weight of the moment had suddenly drained all the strength from his legs. He rubbed his face with both hands and stared at the floor. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said. The words hit me harder than I expected, because they meant one thing. Whatever this secret was, it wasn't simple. Finally, he looked up and said the sentence that changed everything. "She's my daughter." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Your daughter?" I repeated slowly. He nodded. "It was before you. Years before we met." My mind started racing. "But why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know she existed." That answer stopped me completely. "The girl's mother contacted me 3 months ago," he explained. "She said she tried to find me before, but she couldn't." "Why now?" I asked. He hesitated again, and that hesitation made my stomach drop. "She called because she was scared," he said quietly. "Scared of what?" "The doctors." My chest tightened. "She's been in and out of the hospital for months," he continued. "What's wrong with her?" I asked. He looked down at the floor again. "Her heart." The words felt strangely quiet, but their impact was devastating. "They said she might need surgery," he said, "and her mother didn't know what to do anymore." Suddenly, the image of the girl in my memory changed. She wasn't just a secret. She was a sick child. "And that's why you've been going there," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "I just wanted to be there for her." The room fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different, because now the story wasn't about betrayal. It was about something far more complicated. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. He hesitated. "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" He looked directly at me. "Afraid you'd see me differently." That answer hurt more than I expected. "You didn't trust me," I said quietly. He didn't argue. Instead, he said something that made my heart sink all over again. "There's something else." My stomach tightened. "What else?" "The doctors don't think she has much time." My breath caught. "How much time?" "They don't know," he said. "But if she doesn't get the surgery soon?" He couldn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The meaning was clear. "Does she know?" I asked quietly. He nodded slowly. "She's smarter than people think." My chest tightened again. "Her mother can't do this alone," he continued. Then he looked at me carefully. "There's a reason I needed to talk to you tonight." My stomach dropped. "She needs us. Us." "You want me to help raise her?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "Not just raise her. The doctors think the surgery might work, but recovery could take months. And her mother can't afford the treatment." I finally understood what he was asking. "You want me to help pay for it?" He didn't answer. But the silence said enough. Because suddenly, I realized something terrifying. This decision could change everything. Our finances, our plans, our future. But when I thought about that little girl again, the way she held his hand, the way she called him Dad, something inside me softened. And yet, before I could respond, my phone vibrated on the table. One message, from a number I didn't recognize. My heart started racing as I opened it. The message contained only 6 words. Something happened to Lily tonight. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked up at him slowly, and in that moment, we both realized the same terrifying thing. The story wasn't over. It was only just beginning. For a moment, neither of us moved. The message on my phone felt heavier than it should have. Like the 6 words on the screen were carrying the weight of an entire future. Something happened to Lily tonight. My hands started to tremble slightly as I read it again and again. My husband noticed the change in my face immediately. "What is it?" he asked. I slowly turned the phone toward him. He read the message, and the color drained from his face almost instantly. Without another word, he grabbed his jacket. His movements were rushed now, urgent, nothing like the calm man who had been sitting on the couch just seconds ago. "We need to go," he said. The tension in his voice sent a chill through my chest. "Go where?" I asked, but deep down, I already knew the answer. "The hospital," he said quietly. The word hung in the air like a storm cloud. Hospital. That meant one thing. Something had gone wrong. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind as we hurried toward the door. What happened? Was she okay? Was this the surgery he had mentioned? Or something worse? The drive felt longer than it actually was. The streets were mostly empty. Street lights passed by the car window, one after another, each one casting brief flashes of light across his face. And for the first time since I had known him, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not worry, not stress. Fear. The kind of fear only a parent feels. And suddenly something inside me shifted again. Because in that moment, the man sitting beside me didn't look like someone hiding a secret. He looked like a father who was terrified of losing his child. Neither of us spoke during the drive. The silence between us was heavy, but it wasn't the same silence from earlier. Before, it was filled with suspicion. Now, it was filled with uncertainty. When we finally reached the hospital parking lot, he didn't even wait for the engine to fully stop before opening the door. We rushed inside. The bright hospital lights felt harsh after the darkness outside. Nurses walked past us. Machines beeped quietly somewhere down the hallway. And suddenly, the reality of the situation felt painfully real. He approached the front desk quickly. "I'm here for Lily Carter," he said. The nurse looked at the computer for a moment. Then her expression changed slightly. "Family?" she asked. He hesitated for just half a second. "Yes." The nurse nodded slowly, then pointed toward the hallway behind her. "She's in room 214. My heart started beating faster. Room 214. For some reason, that number suddenly felt incredibly important. We walked down the hallway together, step after step, closer to the door, closer to the truth. But as we reached the room, he suddenly stopped walking. His hand rested on the door handle, and for the first time since we arrived, he turned to look at me. There was something in his eyes I had never seen before. Gratitude, fear, hope, all mixed together. Then he said something so quietly, I almost didn't hear it. "Whatever happens in there?" He paused and took a deep breath. "Thank you for coming." Then he slowly opened the door, and the moment we stepped inside the room, I realized something that made my heart drop, because Lily wasn't alone, and the person sitting beside her hospital bed was someone neither of us expected to see.